Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. If you are asking me from the scientific perspective that what is drug, so scientists, chemists, they know better than me that what is drug. But so far as the theological concerns about the drug menace is concerned, everything which blurs your mental acumen and everything which keeps your mind in abeyance and suspension, so it can be treated as drug. That is when your power of reasoning, that's when your power of discernment between good and bad, it loses its track. We can say that person is under the sway of a drug. There are a lot of parallels between the conflict situations and the consumption of drugs by the persons, by the people habitating that very war zone or conflict zone. Basically, it is a sort of psychological aberration which a person undergoes because of conflicting situations. For example, somebody has lost his son, somebody has lost his brother, or like that, or even if nobody has lost anyone, still there is a lot of tension and there is a lot of what I can say, these prevailing situations, they are so abhorring that a person sometimes tries to seek refuge in the artificial sources of in the artificial means of calming himself down. So verily the conflict situations are very related with the people consuming drugs. What they basically want to do, they just want, this is an escapist route. They want to escape the brunt of the current circumstances and situations. That is why they go towards these drugs, as if an ostrich, it tries to hide its head in the sand and feels that nobody is seeing me. Same as the escapist route undertaken by, particularly by young men, in order to escape the brunt of the situation. That as the old English adage that an idle man's brain is a devil's workshop. When a person has nothing to do, so he takes recourse to various evil means, and more so when a person is not when a person has no recourse to the remembrance of Allah, when a person has no recourse to the lofty moral ideals of religion, he takes recourse to these very things, and that way, in order to curtail or in order to abandon his boredom, in order to abandon the monotonous situation of his life, he tries to get something new. That way, first of all, it's out of curiosity that they seek these drugs and see what is the outcome. For some people, it is a sort of heroism, and this Bollywood, Hollywood, etc., they too have created a sort of romanticism in this drug album by virtue of portraying this drug culture in a quote unquote heroic manner. So when a person is idle, he takes recourse to all those very schemisms of this manner, and virtually he gets caught in this very web of drugs. And as you have said, this hartals, lockdowns, for us, it creates a sort of inertia in the people, and this very inertia, then people just try to break down this monotony, this inertia, and they take recourse to these very means. So far as Afghanistan is concerned, it is a war-torn zone, and it is very much famous for heroin, this trade. And now I don't understand, and I'm not able to make a sense of the thing that on one hand there was Taliban regime in Afghanistan who used to portray themselves as a sort of Islamic caliphate, and on the other hand that very regime, it got most of its income from this very heroin trade and drug trafficking. So it's a very abhorrent situation that when your caliphate ideas, or when your ideas of piety, they get merged with this your drug trafficking, so that way you provide a sanctity, a sort of sanctity to this very drug menace. So I think in Afghanistan, because of conflict zone, the drug trafficking got very much enhanced, but they have, I'm sorry to say, but they have sent wrong signals across the globe by merging, by clubbing the religious ideals or the ideals of caliphate with this drug trafficking. Preachers, or what we can say, quote unquote, some Sufis, they take this charas, they take this hashish, they take this cocaine, and they as if it has some divine sanctity, as if it has some revelational aspect. But you must first of all understand the genesis of the problem. Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Kullu muskurin haram." Everything which in a sort keeps your mind, or which suspends your rational activity, it is haram, it is totally prohibited in Islam. Why? Because Islam is a rational religion. Allah Almighty has given us ta'aqqul, He has given us mind, so that we may discern between good and bad. When this rational faculty is kept in abeyance, that means that at that very time the person whose rational faculty is in abeyance under the sway of the drugs, that means that at very time the religious obligations, do's and don'ts, they are not applicable upon that very person. And when they are not applicable upon that very person on that very point of time, that means at that very point of time he is outside the ambience of the Sharia of Islam. At that very time he is outside the community frame of Islam. And when himself he comes out of the community frame of Islam, because Sharia is not applicable upon the person who doesn't have rationale, so he himself chooses to at that very point of time to come outside the ambit of the Khairi Ummah, Islamic community. And any point of time when a person is outside, is out of the ambit of his own rationality, that means he is out of the ambit of the injunctions of the Quran. He is out of the ambit of the injunctions and the prohibitions and commandments of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He, in a sense, he has just he throws out the royal robe, or prophetic royal robe, which has been provided to him by the Prophet. He just throws the garment out, he just wears it out. So that means that he himself willingly is coming out of the fold of the Islamic community even for a moment. And that very thing is very much abhorrent. That very thing is very much, what we can say, it is very much it doesn't augur well with the Islamic ethics. So any preacher, any Sufi who claims that, this is important point which I want to make, any Sufi who claims that this consumption of drug, it gives me some sort of elevation, it elevates me spiritually. No, because you are using the crutch to walk upon. In Islam, the only thing which makes your soul satisfied, what is it? Allah bi zikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. Verily, it is the remembrance of Allah which makes your heart, which gives your heart content, which makes your heart satisfied. When a person is not satisfied, and when a person is not elevated by the zikr of Allah, when a person is not elevated by the remembrance of the Prophet, these are all artificial sources, and they have nothing to do with that very spiritual elevation, because once he comes out of this influence of drugs, he is there in the pit. He realizes that when he comes out of, for example, per se, let us think that under the sway of drugs he sees himself in paradise. But once he comes out of this very sway of the drugs, he is again there in that very pothole. Yes, I have seen majority of those pious fools, pious idiots. A term had been coined by Orientalists, Western scholars, about these very Islamic Sufis, but I think it holds its ground. It holds air. They are pious idiots. They are making a show of their piety and their very taqiyas.
Exactly.
Their very dens and hubs of this drug addiction. What they are doing, they are selling the brand Sufism, and they are attracting young men towards their hubs by portraying themselves as Sufis, and then they make them habitual to this drug abuse. And I have seen it closely, and I have monitored it closely.